Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. I don't see how you do it every Sunday. All right. Well, you owe all this off to my wife. She helped me print all this up. She did all this for me. She's a real good help. The past couple of Sundays, we have been talking about forgiveness. And let me tell you guys, this was a hard thing for me to overcome. It says in 1 John 4:20, if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he is a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. It is easy to say we love God when that love doesn't cost anything more than weekly attendance at church. But the real test of our love for God is how we treat the people right in front of us, our family members, people we work with, and fellow believers. We cannot truly love God while neglecting to love those who were created in his image. In Matthew 5:22, by the way, this Matthew 5:22, this was a verse that my great-grandmother taught me when I was a little bitty guy. That's the only Bible verse I knew when I was a kid. And it says that, but I say to you that everyone who continues to be angry with his brother or harbors malice against him shall be liable to and unable to escape the punishment imposed by the court. And whoever speaks contemptuously and insultingly to his brother shall be liable to and unable to escape the punishment imposed by the Sanhedrin. And whoever says, you cursed fool or you empty-headed idiot, shall be liable to and unable to escape the hell of fire. The verse that she taught me when I was a kid was the one who looks at someone and calls them a fool. And when I was little, I always thought it was the word fool that was the bad thing. And as I got older, I realized it's just making fun of somebody, putting somebody down for who they are, what they can and can't do, something like that. That's what it basically means. We're supposed to love each and every one of us just the way God created us. And in Deuteronomy 16:18, the Sanhedrin, it said in there that you're being imposed by the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is judges and officers made up in towns, which the Lord your God has given you according to your tribes, and that they shall judge the people with righteous judgment, more or less like a court of law. So if you just go out there and you get mad at your brother or sister without any reason, you're in danger of the Sanhedrin. I mean, that's the way it was back in the Old Testament days. And I think that's the way it should be today. I mean, as fellow believers, we should, if we see somebody making fun of each and every one of us in here, the others that sees it needs to go up to them and say something. I mean, I think that's the way we should do it. And to summarize Matthew 5:22, it says, killing is a terrible sin, but anger is a great sin. Two, because it also violates God's command to love. Anger, in this case, refers to seething, brooding, bitterness against someone. It is a dangerous emotion that always threatens to leap out of control, leading to violence, emotional hurt, increased mental stress, and spiritual damage. Anger keeps us from developing spiritual pleasing to God. Have you ever been proud that you didn't strike out and say what was really on your mind? That one, that's my wife. Me and her went through that this morning writing this. There was a few things we wanted to say to each other, but we didn't. Well, you know how it is when husband and wife get together. They always argue and bitter and fight. Self-control is good, but Christ wants us to practice thought control as well. Jesus said that we will be held accountable even for our attitudes. Thought control. That one there is a still really bad one that I struggle with. Like my son tells me, he's never, and as long as he can remember, never heard me say a cuss word. That doesn't mean I don't think about them. I think about them all the time because, all the junk I listen to, things I see on TV, the people I talk to, garbage in, garbage out. That's one thing that Jesus helped me with. He helped me control what comes out my mouth. I was very fortunate with that. And it also goes on to say that broken relationships can hinder our relationship with God. If we have a problem or grievance with a friend, we should resolve the problem as soon as possible. We are hypocrites if we claim to love God while we hate others. Our attitudes towards others reflects our relationship with God. Now, me and my wife, we started going to church back in 1999. At that time, we were separated, in the process of getting a divorce. She asked me to go to church out at Mankins and talk to Chad Stubblefield on marriage counseling, and it was mostly because of my drinking. We had many questions to ask, and every one of our questions were answered in the sermon that morning. We were amazed, and we never quit going to church. I mean, think about it. If you went to go out there for something and every question that you had was answered just by some guy getting up here and talking and had no idea what you was there for, that was a God thing. So after we started going to church, a couple of months later, we gave our lives to Christ and let him heal our broken relationship. Then Chad, he moved to Lingerville, and so we transferred to Cross Country Church. And then out of the blue, John Hill asked me to help with Awanas. Well, where I learned forgiveness is where it's coming up. One day, my son Hans, he came home from school mad at the world, and we talked about forgiveness. And I was going to give him a lesson out of the Bible on forgiveness. So we read Matthew 18, verses 21 through 35. And as you all know, it says, Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. And then Jesus told Peter the story about the king who forgave his servant's debt, and then the servant did not forgive the debt of the fellow servant and put him in prison. And the king found out and was angry and put him in prison and tortured him. And then in verse 35, it says, This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. Well, at that time, me and my best friend had a falling out. I mean, he was my brother since we was a little bitty kid. We wasn't by blood, but we were brothers. And he had done some things that really tore me up. And as I was teaching Hans this verse, he said, Daddy, what if, what's his name, come to the house and ask you for some help? I said, son, if he called me on the phone and asked me for anything, I would go help him in a minute. But if he steps foot on my front porch, I'll knock him plumb off my porch. And I was serious. And that's when Hans was 10 years old at this time. And he said, Daddy, if you don't let him in your house, why should God let you in his? That broke me right there. Right there at that moment's when I learned what true forgiveness really means. No matter how bad it is, you've got to forgive. You cannot carry around the smallest problem in your heart about someone else. I mean, it says if you come up here to the altar and pray, you are to go. If you come to the altar to sacrifice something, you are to go and get things right with your brother. Whether it's if he's mad at you or you're mad at him, get things right. And then come back to the altar and everything will be great. Because what was Jesus' 2 main commandments? Don't have any other gods before God. And what's the other one? Love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say be friends with your neighbor or be acquaintances. He said loving. And love and forgiveness and love go right along with each other. You can't love someone and not be able to forgive them. And that's all I got. Okay.